every week we invite an expert to speak about topics related to digital marketing and how to attract your target audience online. So usually the topics are sent via email and also shared in our Facebook group. So be sure to be on the mailing list or really tune in to see what's happening in the coming weeks. All these replays will be up in the Facebook group. I'm excited to get started because today we have Kewyn, who's a conversion expert. And like the last time we connected was over a year ago, right? And we've always been wanting to do something together, but never got the chance. So I'm glad that we have this expert session today to connect and hear all about your insights with conversion. So without further ado, I'll monitor the comments to see if people can see you and see the slides. But you can go ahead and introduce yourself and share your slides and give it up for Kewyn.
All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. Let's see if this works. Okay, let's see if we are up. Right, guys. Okay, so this should do a trick. So my name's Kewyn. I've been doing digital marketing for quite a while now. And one of the things that is really interesting with space is it's constantly evolving. And you're always learning something new. So I started as a software engineer. I don't know if you knew that. So that's how I got started in the space, is basically just software engineering. And then we're building apps and things got really great. We were among the first ones to be creating apps, and, you know, with working with Apple, and just some really awesome things were happening. And then eventually the app space just started getting more saturated. And then I realized, oh, you can't just put an app out and then for somebody to buy it. And things started changing. You're like, how do I now sell my app now that the space is busy and there's a lot more people being in here? So that's kind of like my journey into digital marketing and learning and figuring it out. How do I actually make something sell? And in the space that I'm in, one of the big things is it's results driven. So everybody is expecting for you to be showing up with results, compared to just saying that you do digital marketing and then not getting any results, because then your clients start moving away. So today, what I'd really love to cover is how do you convert somebody from just being a follower, I would say, or a reader of your blog, or just being around, and actually getting them to buy something from you, because that's a very different thing. So consumption of information, there's plenty out there. But how do you get that information and turn that into a client and allow for somebody to actually get the credit card out and buy something from you? So that's what we're going to be covering today. It's the customer avatar, so defining who the person is, the audience temperature, which I think is really important to defining where people are at within what you're doing, and then content amplification. So that's something that I use with a lot of my clients. Content segmentation, knowing when to distribute what type of content, and then content re-engagement. The last one is really about getting somebody to come back and keep looking at what you're doing. And the very first thing we want to do is defining who is our customer. And one of the big problems that ends up happening is people like, you know, I have followers, but nobody's engaging my content, or nobody's buying, or nobody's opting out, or opting in, or leaving their email address, or doing anything. There's not a lot of engagement. That's probably because it's the right type of messaging that you have. So you're not sending out the right message to attract the right people. At the end of the day, it's not really about the amount of followers that you have, but really about the quality of the people that are following you. You need to define the age, the location, what they do for work, what they do for fun, their relationship type. Like, customer avatar has information about the person. But the biggest mistake that I see people do is they try to speak to everybody. When you try to speak to everybody, you're speaking to nobody. Because if you're not niching down and figuring out exactly who you're speaking to, you're not really speaking to anyone. And your voice is going to get diluted with all the noise that's out there. So you really need to figure out, who are you speaking to? And that's probably the biggest part of this, is finding out who you're speaking to, because the rest of the content that I'm going to show today is not going to work if you don't actually validate who you're bringing into to read your blog post. You know, it's really that. It's like finding the right message. So if you're not diving in or getting clients to come in, you probably want to go back and look at the messaging that you're sending out. I had one of my clients, and I run Facebook ads as part of my main business. And one of the issues that we had with one of my clients is that he was getting leads and good, cheap leads, and they were coming in, but none of them were buying. So we had to go back and change the messaging at the front so that we could find the right customer avatar to come in to his funnel or to his flow. So these are two examples I'm going to share now from Airbnb. And the way that Airbnb has done it is that they went through and created a persona of a person. So they had a name, and it's really defining one person who is going to be your ideal client. And for Airbnb, they have two types of clients that's coming in. One is the host and one is the guest. And as you can see on here, it's like defining the person. Her name is Emma. She's 52. She's a natural therapist. She earns $75,000 per year. And she resides on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland. So it's really defined. So when you're talking about customer avatar, you can't go and say, what's your customer avatar? Or it's females between the age of 45 and 55, and they earn about, I don't know, like $60,000 to $80,000. That's not really an avatar for me. An avatar is when you can define somebody, have a name, put in a picture, like exactly a person. Who is that ideal client? And here are the two examples, Emma and Sarah, and you guys can take screenshots or figure it out or just Google Airbnb customer avatar, and you will find exactly who Airbnb is attracting. And because they know these, they can actually go and be more practical with knowing who their ideal client is, the goals and the values, the challenges and the pain points, the source of information, which is really important. So if a lot of my clients are in fintech, so financial planners, and their age demographic is 45 plus, I am not going to be producing content on TikTok. You need to go hang out where your people are. So if you have a blog, let's say about food, and you want to go and get the ideal person to come in, find out where they're hanging. And most likely a lot of people that are into food are also on YouTube, and they're watching a lot of recipes online. So go where your audience is and go and create content in that environment. So I don't want to spend too much time on this, but really this is another sheet from Digital Marketer that you can screenshot and just fill it out. Some really good questions about finding out where your audience is hanging out. Have you got any questions, Isabel, or anybody else has any question around this?
No, I'm all good for now.
Okay. So one of the next step, once you know who you're speaking to and really defining that, is finding the audience temperature. So finding out where they're at, and I call this the relationship journey. So think about this. You are at the bar, a guy comes to you and he's like, hey, do you want to marry me? And I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this question. It's probably going to be no. You're like, I don't know you. We've never hung out. How do you come around and ask me whether or not you want, I want to marry you? I have no idea who you are. When you're writing a blog post or you're producing content that is asking people for commitment that is way too high to the amount of value that they've received, it's too much of a gap to close between a blog post or free content and then going straight into a sale. They will do it after they've consumed and had enough information about you. But right away from one blog post to a sale, it's not impossible, but it's a very, very small percentage of people that's going to go and, and go for a sale. That's also on the content, and we'll go through these, like the content segmentation. But really what you want to do is be producing content for your cold traffic. And what I mean by cold is somebody who has never heard about you. Potentially never heard about some of the topics, you are aware of the issues or the pain points or the solution to their pain points. So when they're coming into the cold traffic in here, they have no idea who you are, and they're starting to read or follow you on Instagram and read your blog posts. Now they're becoming warmer. So this is more of a spiral rather than a straight line. They don't know who you are, and they enter the warm zone and they're consuming more information until they're ready to buy. And once they are warm, this is where you're producing or you're creating most of your content, is for them to keep consuming more of that. And when they're ready to buy, that's when they become hot. So think about this back into that dating analogy. it's really kind of going for like a coffee date. So that's like the awareness stage. The boyfriend, girlfriend, that's the evaluation stage. And then a proposal to get married, that's for conversion. So what type of traffic do you send to a cold audience? It's really where you're at, like blog posts. It's really finding out how do you get them to get engaged within your post, like the titles of the content. And as we mentioned at the start, we really need to make sure that we're just not producing any form of content, but content that is very specific to our customer avatar. Because the more generic the content is, the more diluted it is. And we don't want that. We want to be as specific as possible with the posts that we're creating. Social media posts, so Instagram, wherever your audience is hanging out, content videos work really well, and podcasts work really well. These are things where people can just come and find you or search for you without them knowing about you. You know, so blog posts would be Google. Social media posts, that'd be Instagram, TikTok, you know, there's a multitude of them. Content videos, usually YouTube, Facebook, and podcasts. There's so many podcasts aggregated out there. And this is where people will be like, I want to learn about a new topic. And we're like, let me find a podcast about this. Or let me go on YouTube and look for a video. Somebody else, one of my friends that shared this. Or a blog post because I'm going on Google to go and type out, you know, how to do this. And this is where SEO and everything else kind of works in. So a lot of times we get super overwhelmed with the amount of content that needs to be produced. And we're like, it's a full-time job just to be producing content for myself and just figuring out how do I find all the topics? How do I post on YouTube? How do I get a podcast? So one of the things that I've done is called content amplification. And I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to show you how to use one piece of content and then just really go for it and explore how to amplify it. Okay, so one of the ways that I do this is with one single piece of content and then amplifying that content. And normally the way we do it is one video of about 20 to 30 minutes, usually nothing longer. So just about that size. And then what we do with the video is I'm going to split it into the actual video itself. So, and then this one, we're going to post it on YouTube and then we're going to post it on Facebook. The next thing we're going to do from there is I'm going to get the audio from this and I'm going to create a podcast. Once I have this, I can take the podcast and the audio and then turn it very easily into a blog. And I can add links to a YouTube video, to some Instagram page, like whatever needs to happen in here. And what I do with the video is I then splice it out into 3 to 5 pieces of content. So smaller videos. And this is about 1 to 3 minutes each. Plus, I can use the content from the blog and get some quotes from here and then create maybe 2 graphics, 2 images or quotes. So right now I have 5 pieces of content for social. So we've used 1 piece of content here. And right now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pieces of content. So we're leveraging 1 piece of content and we are literally just creating as much, extracting as much juice as we can from that piece of content. And guess what? If you're busy, that would be the only time you need to spend, and this could be your team that's working on this.
Quick question. So with the YouTube video and Facebook video, you post the video directly on Facebook, or do you embed the YouTube video onto your Facebook?
No, always do native with those 2 platforms. Facebook, if you paste a link from YouTube, it won't go very far because of the algorithm. Yeah, external links. So you're much better off building your content on YouTube and Facebook. And it's better for you anyway, because now you get the Facebook push and you get the YouTube push on their own end. So, you know, you might be talking to 2 different people here. Because YouTube, what happens is that people are normally searching for the content, and Facebook, it's disrupting, or it's showing related videos. So I don't know if you've noticed this, but if you're watching a cat video and then Facebook is about to show you the next video, it's another cat video, another animal video, and then it's always the same. If you're watching a video about cars, And then the next video is going to be the same thing. Not necessarily from the same provider, but Facebook is learning because they want to keep you on the platform.
Yeah.
And if you already started engaging one type of content, that's what happens.
On that note about Facebook, do you recommend posting it on your personal profile or the Facebook page that your brand is associated with?
I would say post it on your brand page, and then you can reshare it on your personal page.
And when Facebook is showing these related videos, they would show the original source of where the video is, which is on the brand page, right?
Yeah, yeah. So that's, whatever you're growing. And this is also a little bit tricky, even for me. I have 2 Instagram accounts and I'm like, I should just close one and use one, because it just sometimes doesn't make sense and it's too much. And you'd rather be consistent and just work at it compared to like getting distracted trying to find so many other things to do. I mean, we're all very busy. So that's one of the things. Yeah, just kind of trying to keep it simple. So that's my whole thing, is like streamlining things.
Yeah, which leads me to my point of how do you decide whether you should spread yourself thin and be present on all platforms, or if you should just focus on a couple of core platforms to produce content?
I'll go back to that. Yeah, I'll go back to that first quote that I said, if you're speaking to everyone, you're speaking to no one. So you need to make sure to go where your audience or your buyers are hanging out. So TikTok works really well for a lot of people. If your demographic is quite on the younger side, if your demographic is over 30, you need to be on Facebook and Instagram. That's where we're hanging out right now. So I would not try to go and do TikTok and do this and do that. Or if you find a way to use content amplification like I'm showing, and you can produce content on TikTok that you can reshare in your reels, and you can manage both. But like producing different pieces of content, that's hard. I mean, I had a team that was doing this for me pretty much, full time, and I needed a social media break. I don't know if you noticed this, but I've just had to like step out, and I'm like, it's burning me, mainly during COVID and stuff. So I just kind of stayed away. But it's not saying that, we've done so good. I mean, business has been doing great because most of our stuff is word of mouth. So we get a lot of our clients from recommendations. And I didn't feel the need for me to just go thin on like trying to keep creating content. We're doing pretty well. And I didn't have anything to say but I felt could bring value to people. And obviously you can always find something, but I just didn't feel in a space that I could do that. So yeah, we're coming back. So I've got some really cool stuff that I'm exploring, which is mainly Web3, metaverse, and that type of stuff. So
wow.
All right.
Yeah, looking forward.
Yeah, let me close this, and because I really want to show how to take that traffic that's coming in cold and actually getting them to buy from you. So let me share my screen again. Okay. So now that we've done content amplification, so we're just using a little piece of content and we're expanding on that. If you're producing content or you're doing any form of marketing, you need to know the principles of influence. That's reciprocity, consistency, social proof, liking, authority, and scarcity. There's some really good resources out there on that, but just kind of touch on each of them. Reciprocity is when you give something to somebody and they just feel the need to give you something back. This has happened to anyone. You go into a coffee shop and you're hanging out with a friend and they decide to buy your coffee. Like, I'll get your coffee next time. Or you get invited for dinner and you want to do something back. So that principle actually works online too. And we'll explore that after. Consistency. People always if they're taking action, they like to do what they've been doing in the past or what they've said they were going to do in the past. So finding micro commitment and micro consistency within your journey, like getting them to like a post or comment on something, just something that says, you have a post on social media and say, I will take charge of my 2022. Like, I'm gonna make it in 2022. Like, getting people to like say something about the future, you can always go back and ask them about this. Hey, you said that you were gonna do something about 2022, but you were gonna work on your SEO in 2022. Like, whatever is that small commitment. Social proof. People tend to do what other people are doing. So, for example, if you love food and you're going somewhere, like all foodies are like hanging out, let's say in New York City or in Seattle, and there's 2 food trucks. One has got a line, the other one has got nobody there, and you want really good food. which truck are you going to go for?
Yeah, that's one trick. I always go to the stall that has the most locals, because then, it's been proven that they serve good food.
Right. So that's social proof, because you're always going to
Mm-hmm.
go where other people are going. We're most likely to agree with someone request if we know and like him or her. So what that means is you need to be agreeable. Like, you need to be somebody that people actually want to hang out with. And if you're on social media and you're looking for people to engage with your content, you need to be agreeable. And that's something, like, people don't like crazy angry people all the time. So that's something that's important too. People are most likely gonna like somebody and follow them if they like them. So that's, another principle of influence: authority. So if you're in a coaching niche, for example, you need to show that you are the expert at that. And the best way to do this is to produce content around the topic. That's really what it is. People buy from authority figures. And scarcity. Everybody wants what they can't really have. So the less there is, the more people want it. And when you're doing an offer or you're opening up something, if you've only ever sold, let's say, 50, like, have a scarcity for 60. And what you really want to do, you really want people to see, let's say, the numbers going out from your registration. So I had a company that approached me and they couldn't get signups, and it was for a free product, and we just couldn't get people to sign up. So what I ended up doing is I created a countdown for every time somebody would come in and register. So the number on the landing page for them to sign up would go down, and say, today we're only taking, 100 spots open for Wednesday. And once people started seeing that the numbers was going down, we increased the amount of signups. So then I just kept increasing the amount of opens that would happen. And I kept it to maybe 100 for a week. And then I opened to like 150. And the other one, there's other tools that you can add when you're selling something that says proof. Isabel just bought the SEO course. Kewyn just bought the SEO course. And it just keeps going. And here you're tapping both into social proof, and if you had a limited amount of product you were doing, into scarcity also. So these principles now make sense when we're trying to convert the warm traffic, which are the people that are reading your blog, into actually becoming a client and actually paying money for what you do. And usually the way you do this is by creating lead magnets. So first thing, you remember, you don't want to just ask them to get married to you. You're probably just gonna be okay with them buying you a coffee or a drink. So find out a small commitment to your warm traffic, instead of just reading your blog, for them to leave their email address in exchange for a free PDF or something of value, because that's the principle of reciprocity. And that's what we're tapping in. Then you can do free or paid webinars. And if you place yourself as an authority, you're both tapping into authority and the reciprocity aspect of this. So you can do very small products at about $5 to $7 or under, that people would actually want to buy and get access to. So instead of asking for $2,500, you might just want to start with like dollar trial or something that is very small. If you're running Facebook ads, one of the things that I do is with this is, if I know the cost per lead is $2 to $3, I might have a product at the back of that for about $4 or $5. So we recoup the advertising cost on the thank you page. So after we've opted in for a lead magnet, for example, for a webinar, on the thank you page, instead of just saying thank you, see you on the webinar, we're like, hey, before you go, here is a compiled list of all the major magazines that you should list your blogs on, or you can approach for them to do a guest post, as an example. I've compiled this for years. Here's my list. You can buy this from me for $7, as an example. So that's very attractive for somebody who signed up for a webinar about how do you get on other magazines and become a guest blogger on other blog. So like, make sure that it's kind of linked together and that makes sense. So all of these, all of the ideas really goes back to place of authority, reciprocity, like getting that done really well, those two in your warm traffic. That's like super important. And then if people don't end up buying from you, so after you've got like your warm traffic to come in and they've opted to a webinar, at the end of a webinar, you can ask them to buy your 197 product or your $2,000 product. Like, it just depends on how much value and how much content they consume. You can't ask them to jump too high depending on the value of a product. Obviously, your price point is going to be important. So testing your price point here is really important, because if you're selling, let's say, $1,000 product, but your niche or your market, your pricing is out, you're not going to sell anything, because people would be, this is outside of what this is worth. However, if you are selling a high ticket item for something like in the financial space, or when people are just looking for the best thing, your pricing potentially needs to be higher than anybody else. And this is a little bit scary. Let's say somebody is looking for the best handbag ever. They just want to like give the best present ever. And they're just trying to find the best handbag. So they go up to the stores, let's say they go to Macy's, and they're looking at all the handbags. And they don't really know that much about handbags. They're just looking for something that's pretty, but they really want to impress the person. How are they going to decide what handbag to buy? It's really by price point. They're really going to look for the most expensive thing. So if you want the best car, you're probably going to do some research and everything. But at the end of the day, if between what you want to do is you're really going to go for the most expensive one. I remember being sick and I just had a bad cough, and I went to the store and there was like so many cough medicines. I just wanted to get better, and I didn't care about the price point. I just wanted to get the best cough medicine. So I went for like the $40 one, which probably the $10 one is going to work as good, but I just didn't want to risk it. And I just went for most expensive. So sometimes in the product, you might actually need to be higher than your competitors. So to kind of like bring this all together, the reason why most people don't buy from you is because they don't have enough information about what you bring. The clarity isn't there in your messaging, and they don't really know and trust you. So this is where content re-engagement comes in. So at this point, when people aren't buying, you need to be posting testimonials, FAQs, demonstrating value, demonstrating authority, showing the benefits to them. Way too often, I see people talking about a product they are selling, whether it's a course or anything else, but they're telling about how good the course is, but they're not talking about what's a benefit to the person doing the course. And that's a change. They don't really care if you have a 10 megapixel camera and all that type of stuff. If you think about GoPro, for example, the main brand and the main things that they show is the idea of adventure. They're selling adventure to people. They're not really selling a camera. So they're showing like what you get to experience with a product. So I think that's really important. I see this mistake being made so many times. Removing obstacles. So knowing that, oh my gosh, we need to go and click 5 times before we get to pay for something. That's too many, you know? So working that out. Explaining the client journey. Sometimes people, when there's a new product or something we've never done, let's say SEO, we have no idea what SEO is. And they kind of like know that it gets you up on Google, so they're doing the research, but they don't understand the value of an SEO course. You need to be able to explain to them what happens after they put their credit card number in and they buy your product. And then you can tell them that, hey, during the first few weeks, we're going to do some keyword research. Then we're going to be looking at backlinks, and these are the benefits that's going to happen to your website. Then we're going to be progressing here. You can expect to have weekly content from me. So when these questions aren't answered, it's unclear to the person. So let's say you've sent them some testimonials on there, and that's the type of content they've been consuming. If they don't have enough information, they might not buy. So then what you do is you demonstrate value. So have a nurture sequence, when email sequence that's going out, that's hitting those main keys and benefits. And if you go back to the principle of influence, that's the best way to embrace that. And you can use ConvertKit. I use Keep, several tools for you to be able to nurture and keep sending those email contents out. But obviously it's a journey. So you need to understand your client and you need to go back on that journey with them and answering those questions as they're coming.
Wow, I've just been taking notes throughout because you have so many golden nuggets in there. And yeah, everything you say really does make a point. And I think all of it add together to really convince a prospect to become a buyer. That's really cool. But how do you know whether they have enough information or not? And they simply think that your product is not right for them?
Until they unsubscribe, really.
So the point is to keep feeding them information and content and value.
Yeah, people value email lists, but when people unsubscribe, that's one of the best things because one, they're never going to buy from you. That's why they unsubscribe, right? And two, your email reputation as a sender starts increasing. If you had, let's say you have 100 people on your list and 10 of them were never going to buy anyway, and they decide to unsubscribe, right? If you were sending to 100 with the 10 people that didn't want to get your content, really you're going to have 90 out of 100 that's interested in your content, and your best rate is always going to be 9 out of 10. But if the 10 went out and you had 90 people on there, you have 100% people that actually want your content. So your open rate is going to go up, your click-through rate is going to go up, your email provider is going to love you, more email delivery is going to get through. So it's actually great, I think, when people unsubscribe. That means that they had all the information they needed and they made a decision that that product wasn't for them. And it's totally fine. We're not here for everybody. We're here for some people.
Yeah, I like that perspective. So, we've touched on a lot of points, and I just wanted to go right to the beginning where we talked about creating an ideal, a specific customer persona and creating content for the specific person. So I was wondering if you really narrowed down to a specific customer avatar, will you reach a point where you run out of topics to write because of how narrow or how specific your audience is?
Yeah, I mean, the specificity is, we're going to ask a question. How many, let's say we were talking to women that were in the 50s, as an example. Obviously, we're looking at our ideal client and we're giving her an age, but really there's a gap. We're speaking to people, let's say in the 50s. I think there's millions of people. I don't think you're going to run out of content because your content becomes so niche that when they're on there, they feel known and seen. And let's say you're doing SEO right now. If you are speaking about so many different topics, people that come in here, they don't really know what Isabel does, right? They're like, does Isabel do Facebook ads? Is she doing Instagram growth engagement? Is she doing what is Isabel known for? And you as an authority figure, it doesn't gel anymore because you're no longer an authority in SEO. You're just become a generalist, and generalists don't get paid. It's the specialist that gets paid, So it's good to know a lot of things for you to be sharp. And then, so.
I know there are a couple of people who are in the group who might be listening who really struggle with writer's block and coming up with quality articles to serve their audience, which is why I asked you this question. Where can they go to brainstorm topics related to their specific customer avatar?
Okay, so this is a piece of content, but only if you pay for it, you get. No, I'm joking. So I have a really good trick for that. So the best way to do this when you have writer's block is to actually go and find the pain points of your clients. Go on Reddit, go on YouTube comments, go on other blogs, other topics, and find out what are they complaining about. Like go and read the 1-star reviews and find out what's missing and write content about that. So there's an endless pool of content just by going and reading comments.
Yeah, wow, that's cool. That's great. That's a great place to start. And then say, okay, you've created all the content and you've outlined the content amplification method where you can create 9 or even 20 pieces of content from just one video. When you start promoting them and you tell people, oh, okay, I've created content for this topic, where would you lead them to? Is there a core platform to drive your prospect or your audience?
So this is where we go, because now they're warm. So this is where we go back into the lead magnet. Find something that they really need, that they're really interested in. Sometimes you can go straight for a sale, and it's okay if your price point is low enough that they don't feel, when you go to the supermarket or you go to Best Buy, the most expensive stuff is always at the back of Best Buy, and the cheaper stuff is normally, you know, here. And why is because when you go at the back of a store, they can have somebody to come and talk to you and sell you in person, or we put it under a window sometimes so that you need to ask, you know, for it. Other times when you're looking at the supermarket, milk, butter, like the commonly used items, is always right at the back. But then when you go in closer to the cashier, it's all impulse buy. So chocolate, batteries, anything that is very low, doesn't require like, oh, am I gonna cook chicken this week or not? It's like, oh my gosh, there's chocolate here. It's $2. Ooh, it's emotional. It, you know, like it arouses something inside of you, and you're like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna get chocolate. So when you're looking at your conversion from warm into hot, like that spiral that I'm talking about, really what you want to do is test different offers. But because right at this point, you want an email address, right? So they're consuming your podcast, they are on your social media, you want that email address. So then you can start nurturing them with the different pieces of content about you and about who you are before you ask them to buy. So this could be a free masterclass, opt-in, and you know, you have a funnel where you have a mini course that you're giving away, and you know, you can do a combined top expert sessions, nuggets under paid, you know, under traffic wall. So people can come in, leave their email address, and then we get access to your top expert sessions as an example. So whatever you do, like have an offer that is so in line with your niche that people would want to leave their email in exchange for information, reciprocity. And so you calculate the amount of conversion. So if 100 people end up on the page, how many people left their email? And you want that number to really be about 20 to 30%. And if this one didn't work, then test a new one and just keep going at it until you have something where that's bringing you 20 to 30% in terms of conversion.
Wow. Yeah, really spoken from a true expert. I love it. That's really great info. So for example, I mean, with your amplification method, you have YouTube posts, you have Facebook posts, you have Twitter, your blog posts. So if you wanted to share a piece of this information that you just published to a prospect or to a friend, for example, on this topic, which platform would you lead them to check?
Yeah, so different pieces that we're producing speaks differently to different people. Okay. So if my friend is most likely going to read a blog post because we don't have time to watch a 20-minute video, I'm going to send them to the blog
Yeah.
post. I'm like, hey, you need to have a look at this video. And on the blog, there's the video itself, and there's the iTunes embed for them to listen to a podcast. And also what I do
Wow.
is I have a snippet of a quote from the Instagram account on the blog post. So when we're scrolling, we have a title, we have the YouTube video, we have the podcast, and as we're scrolling, there's a quote that's highlighting using Instagram, and it's there. So that's usually for me, the blog is the better one, because also you have probably Google ad tracking, Facebook pixel on there, and you can retarget them with
Yeah.
ads depending on how advanced your marketing strategy is.
Yeah, cool. Wow, that's great. Yeah, so the blog would be the main platform to drive readers, to drive traffic to. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, somebody's got a 3 minute one of your snippet video of 1 to 3 minutes. Maybe there's one piece of content in there that is so relevant to where your friend is at, and that's what people are gonna share. You know, they're gonna go through, and one of your followers would be like, "Oh my gosh, I know my friend John who needs to hear about this. Let me share to him that 3 minute piece of video," and then John's gonna look at this and probably go, "Oh, I need to watch the full thing, I need to subscribe to her podcast." So that's why we want to amplify the content so that people, where they're at, they get to reach and grab more like a buffet, and find if they want a little piece of meat or they want a big steak, you know? So.
Yeah. Yeah. And on that note, I know you recommended to have a team to do that amplification method, but if someone were to just DIY, do you have tools to recommend to help them to schedule everything or to edit the videos, to cut into snippets, that sort of thing?
Yeah, there's different tools out there. It's really what makes sense to you. I think I was using one called Veed.io.
Yeah, VEED.
Yeah, that's right. So that's one example to cut snippets. They do captions on there. It's really what tools works for you. That question comes up quite often, but I would much rather use a knife that I'm comfortable with, or tool that I'm comfortable with, than using something else that I don't know how to use it, and it's going to take me significantly
Yeah.
longer to try to learn Final Cut when I'm using Premiere, you know. So
Yeah.
whatever makes your life easy.
Yeah, I know. I myself use Missing Letter for social media scheduling. They have this AI that pulls out quotes from the blog post, so I don't have to create every single social media copy from scratch. So that's really helpful. And the counterpart to Veed.io is Descript. It was Groupon's CEO, Groupon's co-founder that created Descript. And I found it to be really helpful with editing videos and creating captions and cutting stuff up. So yeah, those two are my go-to tools right now. And yeah, I wanted to bring your attention to a lot of people who are in the group right now. They're kind of new into the whole online business thing. And so they might not have, like you mentioned, different points of influence like social proof and likability. If they are sort of new into the business, how do they go about getting social proof and getting people to like them if, let's say, they're really new into the industry and they just want to break into health coaching or parenthood, that sort of thing?
Yeah, some things take time. There's no shortcut for some of those things. So the way you need to do it is by producing really high quality content and allowing for your audience to come and grow your Instagram and, you know, wherever your followers are. And that's by producing content. As we're talking, like the expertise, my expertise isn't necessarily in, you know, social media growth. It's in getting people to buy. But, you know, like for them at that point, it could be like they need to go and work out how to grow their social media with high quality content. It might not be reciprocity. Could be when people are signing up and they're giving something away. I use reciprocity pretty early on, even on a small account. And the way I was doing it was giving away a free book every month. And if you think about it, a book on Amazon delivered is about $7 to $10, right? And I was getting so many email addresses from that because I would give away a free book, and all they needed to do was subscribe to win it for a giveaway. They just needed to subscribe to the book. So think about this: an email address for a real book, that's great value. You know, it's not a PDF or anything. And for $10, where are you going to buy leads for $10? So, you know, there's creative ways for you to be doing things like that. So think about leveraging, you know, $10 in the great scheme of things for a month worth of leads is nothing.
Cool. Wow. Yeah, that's a great idea. I just launched a giveaway for this week. So that's a coincidence. But yeah, it's great for growing your leads, I guess. And okay, one more question. Just because you mentioned testing the price point to see if it works with your potential audience, is there like a rough duration or number of people that you would go through in this test to determine if it is working or if it's not working?
Yeah, depending on your list. I use Facebook ad to do a lot of my testing. So really depends on your product, where you're at. I use Facebook because I can send traffic to the page, and the bigger your audience, obviously the bigger your testing pools can be. But I wouldn't test anything like under, you know, 100 or under, like that for me is like one pool, you know. And it's easy to do the math too at the end of the day, you know. It's like 5 people bought, okay, 5% out of 100, you know, and 10 people bought there. So yeah, I would just, I don't use an exact formula because there's so many different people potentially group with different list sizes. But I would look at splitting potentially, if you have 100,000 lists, I would split into 1,000, maybe 2,000, and then do a 10,000 send. So 5 different price point, 2,000 in your send. Let's just do email, for example, even price point. You can find out which one of the subject line got the biggest open rate, right? So you can do a small demographic. If you have 2,000 people on your list, like send 100, see which title opened the best, and then use that to send the rest of your emails. Same thing with your price point, you know, send 100 and 100 and see how many opt-in you got. If nobody bought, then do another 100 and 100 and test, you know, two other different price points. So yeah, that's how I normally do it. But it's more of like looking at the list and then the engagement before.
Yeah, before putting your offer out, do you have some best tips for growing your list besides Facebook ads?
I mean, growing your list is like giving a good offer, like an irresistible offer. If you're doing your podcast, let's say we're doing content aggregation, it could be at the end of all of them. You could say, hey, I'm giving a free book this month. Click on this link to get into a giveaway. Or I have a free course where I'm teaching about this, and I'm only giving 100 scholarship for $0 or for $1 for you to get in. The price is normally $147, or it's valued at $497. Like, just get the course for $1. And you could do this throughout all your content.
Yeah, good point. Wow, this has all been really valuable, and I'm sure a lot of us can take a lot out of it, all the way from building your customer persona, which everyone needs to do anyway, to building your list, to developing your product and testing it out, and even email list building tips. So it has been a really great session. Thank you so much for your time, and I'm really glad to connect with you again.
Yeah, this was awesome. Well, hopefully,
Cool.
you know, your audience too has been able to grab some value from this.
For sure. Yeah, thank you. And we'll keep in touch for sure.
Yeah,
Take
absolutely.
care.
Thanks, Isabel.